Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
Welcome to News Laundry Hafta, episode 221. Angrez apna lagan aur News Laundry apna hafta kabhi nahi chhodte. Thank you for joining us once again. May I remind you to please subscribe and pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Before I introduce the panel, I have a couple of important announcements. So the panel, please bear with me for just a minute. News Laundry will be hosting a screening of the film Bhor, directed by Narayan Singh. And I am the creative producer of the film, although I have done absolutely no creative production at all. But he's just wonderful. He's put my name in the credits. It will be held at the India Habitat Centre at Stein Auditorium on the 19th of May, which is a Sunday at 6:30. Below the Hafta, on the News Laundry homepage, there is a link that you can click on and register. If you're listening to the Hafta on Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify or any other podcast platform, you will not find the link. It's only there on the newslaundry.com Hafta page. So do come. Subscribers will be given preference because, we love you more than we love others. The screening will be followed by a one-on-one with the director, Narayan Singh. Also, you can meet us. The News Laundry crew will be there. You can come and tell us how shit we are at our work and ask for your money back. We won't give you anything back, though. But we will listen to your constructive criticism with much patience and love and affection. Finally, the News Laundry Sena general election is going on well. Many of you have contributed. Thank you so much for contributing and helping our journalists travel the country and bring you ground reports. Because without ground reports, journalism will die. And if you leave it to advertisers, journalism will die. So we need you to subscribe and pay to keep news free. Now, let me welcome and introduce the panel. We have Sir, our managing editor, Hi. Raman Kirpal, editor-in-chief and founder, Madhu Trehan. Hi, Madhu.
Hello.
Anand Vardhan.
Hello.
Our resident IAS expert and many other. Look at him. He sounds disgusted by the introduction. Sorry, yaar. Tu to Santi ho gaya, yaar. And let me introduce Puja Mehra.
Hi.
The author of this book. She is very soft-spoken and she has a lot of rules. Like I said, please sign this. Why I told her to sign it is because who knows, she may become a Nobel laureate. And then I'll say, I have a signed copy, give me $50,000. Businessman, Punjabi businessman. But she says, I don't sign books because she had seen through my plan. So she doesn't autograph her own book. And she also said, I will not talk about anything other than my subject. So Pooja, good luck on the Hafta, man.
That's a tough one. How will you control yourself?
Let's see if
Discipline. D-school product like Mr. Singh. Pooja is a journalist. She's based out of New Delhi. She has 17...
D-school? Which school?
Of economics.
Delhi School of Economics.
And Mr. Singh?
He was also professor there.
Apna Manmohan.
Mannu bhai, motor chali, pam, pam, pam. Chopati jai. Anyway, so Pooja has worked at The Hindu or written for The Hindu, for Business Today, Business World, India Today, Business Standard. Basically, you name it, she's written for them, including The Economic Times. She's completed a master's in economics from the Delhi School of Economics and has covered government. She has specialized in covering Finance Ministry, the Planning Commission, Niti Aayog and the PMO, and she's also covered the Parliament in 2000, 2008 and 9. She won the Ramnath Goenka Excellence in Journalism Award for her stories on the impact of the Lehman Brothers collapse, which triggered a financial meltdown, and the rest, as you know, is history. For those of you who don't, you can either read all her writing or you can watch The Big Short. And now she has written this book, The Lost Decade, How India's Growth Story Devolved into Growth Without a Story. And you can grab your copies, which she will not sign, but you can grab them anyway. So Pooja, welcome to the Hafta.
Thank you so much.
I have a question for her.
Please, Madhu, go for it.
How come no one in the Lehman Brothers was charged with anything after the meltdown?
I have no idea. I have not studied the Lehman Brothers case. That's just the starting point for my book. My book is focusing more on the Indian economy.
But I thought you said in your...
It was triggered by the
It was
Lehman
triggered
Brothers.
by, so okay.
So
The financial meltdown globally was, even before Lehman collapsed because there was a financial crisis in the US
but
financial
I don't think Lehman
Bears
collapsed because of the global financial crisis. I think from what I've read is Lehman was part of creating it, the global meltdown.
So I was saying that it collapsed because of the US financial crisis, and with the collapse of Lehman, it turned into a global financial meltdown, and there were repercussions in India. So that is the starting point of my book.
Okay.
So, but like you were saying, bearings had happened before Lehman for $1 or something.
There are several.
Bear Stearns had gone
There
belly
was a
up.
lot of anger in America because people had lost their homes, all their savings, basically destroyed. And they were really angry with Lehman Brothers. There was a nationwide outrage in America. And the whole thing closed with all the top executives giving themselves golden handshakes.
Yeah, that's
that
also
was
how
it.
The Big Short ends with that scroll of no one was prosecuted
No one
from
was
there. Or no one
prosecuted.
went behind. But yeah, I think...
And a lot of taxpayer money was used to bail out, for instance, AIG.
Right.
Nobody ever...
Freddie and...
They collapsed first. That's the mortgage majors, giants. That's how the financial crisis was triggered, and that's what led in the initial phase Lehman to crash.
And because Lehman wasn't bailed out.
Lehman wasn't bailed out.
Yeah, so it crashed. I mean,
Yeah.
the same could have happened to others
They
also.
couldn't
But
find a buyer, or there wasn't enough money they had to give to it.
So we'll talk a little about Pooja's experience of covering the Indian economy, why she thinks this is the lost decade and India has lost 10 years of a robust growth story. But before that, I have a few headlines. Well, Priyanka is not contesting from Varanasi.
Surprise.
The same old, what's his name, the dude who's been contesting forever, who's an MLA, he's contesting Ajay Rai. The Supreme Court tells Gujarat government to give Bilkis Bano 50 lakhs as compensation and a job and a place to live in where she chooses. It's a very important judgment, and I think it is a slap in the face of our Prime Minister. But a lot of people may not want to read it that way, but I think it definitely is. At a time when very few institutions are willing to stick their necks out. Well, in very depressing news, Myanmar's top court has rejected the appeal of the Reuters reporters who were jailed for reporting on Rohingya killings, even though they won the Pulitzer. I read the article about one of their wives breaking down and crying, but they will be serving apparently a 7-year prison sentence for reporting. So, well, at least India is not that bad, so we should not whine so much.
So have they revoked Aung Chi's Nobel Prize?
I don't think so. I don't think they have that system yet. They haven't revoked her piece. Although the demands are there that they should revoke it. But if you may have spent the 1 million, which you get. But anyway.
On flowers in her hair.
Yeah. On what they call in Kerala land, Mallapu flowers.
Listen, about 20 or 30 haftas earlier, I did mention when she was first released and a month went by and everyone was praising her and was idolizing her, and I said I haven't seen her do one good thing since she was released except meet state leaders across the world with flowers in her hair dressed up. She's very suspect, and I'm very suspicious of people who are jailed who then get a halo for having done nothing except getting jailed. Now, when you get out, you have to do something. Like Nelson Mandela did a great deal in pulling the country together after his release.
Well,
so
I think
she, in fact, has done the opposite.
I think in his case, it was that, he was from the persecuted community and he came out without revenge, without any feeling of anger, and, wanted a reconciliation, so to speak, which was a challenging task. In her case, she was from the privileged community. I mean, she was the daughter of a former leader. So, I mean, yeah.
And lived a large part of her life in London.
Yeah, anyway. Moving on, Rohit Shekhar, the son of N.D. Tiwari, who had fought a case in court to prove that he's the son of N.D. Tiwari, was smothered to death, and now his wife has been arrested because they said she killed him while he was nashe mein dhut, drunk. Moral of the story, if you're fighting with your wife, don't go home drunk. Sorry, was that too soon? Okay. Chief Justice of India sexually harassed me, says a former Supreme Court staffer. In fact, Raman sir will shed some more light on this case, because even today a reporter was at the Supreme Court. For the last 3 days, there are many things related to this. Arun Jaitley has said, yes, there is a conspiracy against the judiciary and we must stand with the judiciary. Chief Justice has denied that no such thing happened.
Yesterday what happened in court was magical. I hope somebody recorded the conversations that went on between the lawyers and the judges.
Today.
You can't take recording devices.
Meaning recorded on a notebook.
That we have. In fact, today we had our very own Gaurav.
Because apparently one judge told the lawyers that you're blowing this up too much. And Indira Jaisingh said, I think you're shrinking it, Your Honour. Tali bajao.
So anyway, Utsav Bains is the lawyer who claims that there's a conspiracy and sexual harassment accusations against the Chief Justice of India. So it's a huge big mess. Raman sir will shed some light on this and maybe inform us a little more. Then in some internationally related news, there are no more sanction waivers for India. America has imposed sanctions on Iran that no one can trade with them, but there are 7 countries, and in fact now there are just 4 who are allowed to get crude from Iran. We are one of them. Now Trump has said even you can't. So I don't know, will that lead to increase in should I get a full tank?
Yeah, as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, ASAP. Then in very refreshing news, comedian Volodymyr Zelensky wins the Ukrainian presidential election by a landslide. He used to star in this comedy show where he used to play a president on television, and lo and behold, he's won the election.
I would vote for Kunal Kamra any day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Put him as an option. I'd like to see how many people would vote for him.
Actually, quite a few would, I think. And then the Islamic State owns up to the Sri Lanka attack 2 days later. Government says it's revenge for Christchurch. I don't know what the government is basing that on. Also, I read an article in Time magazine saying that Islamic State has said chalo, but they had no real logistical support. Maybe the guy who did it was inspired by them, but it's highly unlikely that ISIS had anything to do with the actual planning and execution of it. And Donald Trump's, of course, the Robert Mueller report came out. Those of you who've been following CNN every morning, Don Lemon sits and gloats.
He's become completely multiple personality. 1 minute he's thrilled that Mueller's the best guy that ever happened. Then when the details come out, he's the most disgusting man ever.
And then, there's a lot of headlines because of the election, but we'll just come to the meat of the matter, which is his book, The Lost Decade. In a very interesting judgment, the Madras High Court said marriage between man and trans woman is now valid. And I shall quote something that the judge said. The judge said, Justice G.R. Swaminathan of the Madurai bench upheld the marriage of Arun Kumar and Srija, trans woman. And he said, I quote, sometimes to see the obvious, one needs not only physical vision in the eye, but also love in the heart. Unquote. Justice Chagai. Justice Chagai. Justice.
Sanuki.
How do you know who I'm going to marry, Madhu? Maybe I have some personal stake in this.
Sanuki.
Achha, theek hai. So that was, I thought...
Marry to karo.
Marry to kar lo. Karte le tu. And then Hardik Pandya and Rahul have been fined 20 lakh each. Well, good for them. BCCI anyway. I don't know why there's even in the headlines. Why do we have cricket in the headlines? But anyway, another thing that he observed was that when he delivered the judgment, he had said that the judge also termed as encouraging trends recent Tamil films like Peranbu and Super Deluxe, which deal with these issues being faced by third gender, as opposed to people like, what's his name, Johar, who himself is clearly, seems gay to me, but yet his representation of gay people or any other than the obvious heterosexual male-female in his films is so pathetic.
He's mocking.
Yeah, and no wonder he has idiots on his show saying idiotic things, but then such is the life. What can one say? And finally, the Bombay Stock Exchange warns comedian Kunal Kamra that it could sue him for unauthorized use of photo when he did that meme that don't vote for Modi. I'm shocked at the Bombay Stock Exchange. Maybe Puja can shed some light on what kind of people run the Bombay Stock Exchange.
Do they officially not have a sense of humor?
Clearly.
Is it a rule?
It must be a rule in their statutes.
Clearly.
Chutkula sana, sir, menu andani, how you are hired. And there's lots of election related news. We'll come to that later. You've seen the Modi Akshay interview. We'll talk about that. But Pooja will only talk about stuff that is her area of expertise. She will not talk about anything else.
I'd like
but
to watch
we shall
that.
see.
Surely you have an opinion on the Akshay Modi
we'll
interview.
make her talk. We are Delhi police. We shall make her talk on everything, on Pandey also.
No. I've been reading this
Laughing
Barara
is
book.
hardly third degree.
I'm reading this Preet Bharara's book, Doing Justice. And in that, there's a whole chapter on how they get people to talk. And it's got nothing to do with force or beating up or violence. It's got to do with food.
They starve you.
No, they feed you. So if you're Italian, it'll be pasta. If you're Greek, it'll be Greek food. If you're from the Middle East, Lebanese or whatever, it'll be Arab, Middle Eastern food, falafel and baklawas and all
And
this.
if you're India, rajma chawal. Then
उसका
they'll suffer,
mention
na?
नहीं किया, उसने मेंशन नहीं किया कि
राजमा चावल खिला के
अनिल कुमार को राजमा चावल खिलाया होएगा. That's a good question. I will ask him.
Anyway, the Election Commission of India has ordered an FIR against Pragya Thakur. Election Commission of India is ordering FIRs against everybody, but on their own website, the complaint against Narendra Modi showed up as resolved. And when the gentleman Mahendra from, I think, Bengal said that it has not been resolved, then they said, they changed something. So I think this election commission has...
I think they removed the...
No, then
This
they
is
said that...
probably the weakest, most spineless election commission we've ever had.
And the BJP has fielded Gautam Gambhir from East Delhi and Meenakshi Lekhi. I've always found Gautam Gambhir is like the Kangana Ranaut of the cricket world. He just has a mouth. There's no filter between what happens in his head and what comes out of his mouth. It's just... And the Congress released candidate of 6 in Delhi Lok Sabha. And then there's other, Pragya Thakur related stuff, and the PM's chopper was checked, and the Odisha EC official who checked the chopper has been fired. Priyanka Chaturvedi has left the Congress, joined the Shiv Sena. Udit Raj has left the BJP and joined the Congress. The usual shenanigans that happen, and we have a bunch of letters from subscribers. But that's enough. We'll stop the live now. You can catch the rest of the podcast on any podcast platform, but I would prefer if you come to newslaundry.com and catch the podcast, because what you can do is you can also click on the links that we recommend. And at the same time, you can also check out our other stuff and contribute to NL Sena or subscribe to News Laundry so you can pay to keep news free. So thank you so much for joining us live. Now getting back to Puja. I'm out of breath. So before I come to the meat of your book, can you explain why do you not sign your book?
I'll sign it for you.
Before she mukros. Hune kar do ji. Confirm kar do. So see, step 1 done, we have made her sign the book. Thank you so much, Puja. I know it's a thick book, and I promise I'll try to read it, because I was just telling you I love books on economics. I used to keep showing off that I went through the whole Piketty book with great difficulty, but I finished it. This is like 300 pages. So obviously a 1-hour podcast can't do justice, but if you could explain why you think it's a lost decade. And one thing that I did notice, I read the first few pages, that it's quite bipartisan in its kind of approach. It's not like Modi ne banta gar kar diya or Manmohan. There's a whole decade we lost, that there was growth but without a story. Now, also in that you have said that, big industry is not expanding at the rate that one would. Small scale industries, of course, our own businesses are not doing that well. So A, where is this growth coming from? And B, why is this happening? If it happened under Manmohan, it happened under Modi, who's responsible?
Both are responsible. The political leadership is responsible. Both are responsible in different ways. Dr. Manmohan Singh, being an economist, being a very good economist, and with his understanding of politics, I think knew exactly what was going wrong with policy and how that was impacting the economy. And yet he was not aggressive enough in getting his cabinet to take decisions that the government should have taken when he was Prime Minister. He's responsible, therefore. Mr. Modi is responsible in a different way, even if we grant that he's not a technically speaking, trained economist, but he did surround himself with advisors who did understand what the economy's needs were. And
like who?
There was Dr. Arvind Panagria, there was Dr. Arvind Subramanian, there was Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati.
Who also apparently was pretty close to Manmohan Singh, right?
They're very good friends.
Okay.
And he didn't listen. In the initial phases, the government did do what Mr. Modi was advised, but the first political crisis he faced, he went cold on the entire economic agenda and dropped it like a hot potato. And the entire strategy of the Narendra Modi government changed, and he tried to reinvent his image, and that brought into his agenda a whole lot of things that were not there to begin with. And his focus and his government's focus got diverted, and decisions were taken that added to the problems of the economy rather than resolving outstanding issues.
So through your book, you're kind of, decoding many aspects of the economic engine and seeing where what failed. So is it done on the basis of, data, or is it also have anecdotes of specific policy interventions that you thought were, foolish, or how they played out?
Yeah, it's not a very data-driven book.
Okay.
It is more a book which documents the 10 years, policy decisions, those that were taken, those that should have been taken but were not taken. And it discusses these important policy aspects and makes a case for how, before the financial crisis in 2008, the economy was on a trajectory that was heading northwards. For 3 years, the economy had been growing at 8.8% GDP growth, which had not been observed in India after independence. This is the first time it had happened. But when an economy grows at that rate and it's hit by a crisis, a shock, to bring it back to that level, you need to take some steps. Those steps were not, that follow through was not undertaken.
What steps?
So when an economy is growing at a certain rate of growth, and it gets there's a shock, first you need to take steps to make sure that the impact of this shock would be minimized. So that part of the policy was taken care of very well by the Manmohan Singh government.
That is increased government spending, basically, I guess.
Increased government spending. There was steps taken by the RBI on the monetary side. All of that was handled well, but these are temporary emergency measures and you need to withdraw them. Because of the Mumbai terror attacks, there was a change in the cabinet portfolios, and that brought Mr. Pranab Mukherjee to the finance portfolio, and he did not realize the importance of withdrawing these measures, and they just went on, and so the economy stayed in a state of emergency infusion of. And I remember he famously said that the
Indian economy is decoupled from the international, so we don't have to worry about Lehman so much. Was that true, or we weren't as decoupled as we thought, or we were fairly decoupled, that's why we survived without too much damage?
No, I don't think we were decoupled.
Okay.
We moved pretty much in sync with the rest of the world. The reason we don't realize it, because like I said, the shock was handled very well policy-wise.
Okay.
There was no interference by politicians. But when the change in portfolios happened, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, I'm afraid, did not prove to be a good finance minister, and he did not withdraw the stimulus. He kept the economy overstimulated for a very long period of time, and he should have, ideally speaking, and he was advised to by his economists in the ministry, to move into the phase of addressing long-term structural bottlenecks in the economy. I don't know if that's making sense or it's sounding too much jargon. But things like...
You'd be surprised. Most of our listeners are highly educated postdoctoral geniuses.
I'm glad.
We may not understand, but they will.
They will understand. हमारे बेशक ऊपर से निकल चाहिए.
I'm glad. So what I'm trying to say is that, things like you need coal, you need raw materials, you need roads, you need infrastructure. So you need to adapt or update your policies to the needs of an economy that had grown for 8.8%, and that there was an influx of foreign investments, dollar investments, and all of those things were not changed, which we saw when the allegations of the 2G scam, etc., came out later.
Now, you mentioned that Prime Minister Modi came in to the Prime Ministership with a certain agenda, but then instead of continuing what he had planned, the agenda, he changed. So what was it that he planned, and what did he change, which you say he should have done and he didn't do?
Yeah, so when he came in 2014, it was very clear what needed to be done.
Which was?
Banks' loans were not getting repaid because the economy had slowed down.
That was huge.
Everybody knew that. And in his very first couple of weeks as Prime Minister, he had, and I described that extensively in the book, that, he had held long meetings with the 80 secretaries to Government of India in his office at his residence in Delhi. And one of the main submissions in that meeting was on how there was a banking crisis and it needed to be addressed. There was a banking crisis in the making and it needed to be addressed. All that needed to be done in terms of policy, in terms of capital infusion for banks, was laid out in a presentation by an IS officer, but Mr. Modi did not follow through with that advice. He kept that issue sort of, on the slow burn. And because of lack of policy attention, it eventually blew up into a huge NPA crisis and eventually a banking paralysis. Now, he's not the one or his government is not responsible for initiating that crisis that started, and I described that in the book. The seeds of the NPA crisis were laid in the time of Pranab Mukherjee as finance minister. But he certainly did not provide the policy attention that was needed when he was given advice in time, and because of that, the crisis became far bigger than it should have been. But to answer your question, banking crisis, there were pending reforms from 1991, agriculture, labor, strategic disinvestment, privatization of a whole lot of PSUs. Education and health was the most important, and surprisingly, that advice had come from IMF, Washington.
The Washington consensus.
Not from, not as much from the local economists.
The economic hitman lingering among us.
I don't know if you recall, in 2014, it was announced, and he had there was the labor minister was working on a labor code. They were working on they immediately started working on the bankruptcy law, which came only in 2016.
Yeah, that was a big achievement that they have this new law. Although, sorry to cut in, but I do think that, personally, I never believed that Modi's was an economic agenda. In my view, it was always a cultural agenda, because if your life choice has been an RSS pracharak.
No, but I disagree. I think once he became Prime Minister, his agenda was supposed to be Vikas, and that's what he talked about. But Puja is saying that that's not what he focused on, right?
Okay, so I'll nuance it a little. He may have had a cultural agenda and all of that, but in the till 2015, he definitely also has the economic agenda as part of his overall governance agenda. He does seem very keen on it. He announces the Make in India, which is the correct policy prescription for absorbing the slack from the farm sector. You need to create a lot of jobs, and manufacturing is the best way to do it. And he did announce, he wanted to do ease of doing business and things like that. What happened is that in 2015, so in 2014, he wins a lot of state elections, not just the general election, the BJP. In February 2015, there's a rude shock in the form of the Delhi State Assembly election results, which I think scares the BJP because, I think...
he was on this gallop. He was getting one state after the other. And
also, I think the BJP sort of, had not as yet buried the ghost of the India Shining debacle of 2004. So they're really worried, and there's no scope in 2015 to make any corrections, because there are no further state elections till November, which is when the Bihar election happens, and they suffer a second setback. And through the year, the Congress party accuses him of being a soot boot ki sarkar in parliament. So the land reform, which he had planned, and they had promulgated an ordinance multiple times, they allow it to lapse.
He cycles back on that, yeah.
So the entire economic agenda kind of peters out, and the political shock of Delhi and Bihar makes them go back to the drawing board and come back with a new strategy where they focus on things which they need to reinvent his image. They need to make him, because they think
it becomes more about Modi than about the economy, really.
Also the BJP, the survival of the government.
One question. See, I think the manufacturing sector, I think we are almost dead in the past 10 years. We don't manufacture anything. So what is it that drives our economy? If without manufacturing, if you don't manufacture, you don't have jobs. And this Make in India...
somebody who is a small entrepreneur wanted to start a business in tech, creating, I think, computer this keyboards or something like that. And the government, it came out that the bureaucrats have put in laws which actually exclude any possibility of a new entrant coming into the business unless they're huge. They have you have to have so much of turnover before you can apply for this license. You have to have this. So it gave the foreign companies a huge advantage to come in and do what they want. Whereas you can say make in India, but unless you clean up these rules,
manufacturing,
and these rules will came in after this make in India, huh?
No, but I said this after, a few haftas ago. The only people like Jaggi and all you hear about ease of doing business is people who have not done business. People who are doing business, it is so fucking hard. You would rather hang yourself than continue to do business. It's just that once you've gone in there, you can't shut everything and go home. But it is so hard to do business. Even the simplest things, the kind of and if you're in the media business, tab to chhad do.
And I'm hearing this down the line from
but everything has been outsourced.
Big industrialists will say from big industrialists to a small entrepreneur.
I don't think any economist says, and it's showing up in the data.
Jaggi says all the time.
She'll say, who's Jaggi?
No, I know.
See?
I know who he is. I know who he is, but I'd really, if I got a chance, I would ask him why is the, IIP, which is the index of industrial production at 0.01% growth. So, the industry is not doing well, and it's showing in the data.
But okay, now I have. I want to move on. I want to come back to the economy. I'm going to come back to demonetization, Puja. I really want your view on that.
I want to hear his views on this issue, on the economy.
Anand, before I wanted to ask you about Gujarat, but go for the economy first. Have we lost the decade?
There are very sweeping things are there. What should I answer?
I'll tell you, it's a lost decade because we've lost a whole generation to TikTok and Twitter.
Twitter and TikTok has ever killed anyone?
I went on TikTok since it was being banned just to check what are they banning. I'm in shock at what the young people of India are doing.
What are they doing?
Go on TikTok, you'll see.
I don't know, I tried, but it's very difficult to get on TikTok.
No, it's simple. Go on Google to TikTok and you're on it.
Okay, I'll try after the podcast.
See, my limited understanding is I'm not an expert on
TikTok.
And for that matter, I am not an expert in anything.
We don't qualify our statements with all that, although it totally applies. We don't say that, so don't say it. We are experts.
Manufacturing, I would not agree that manufacturing, there is no manufacturing. There is limited manufacturing. Means
if you want to quantify
the kind
how much it is.
Labor absorption that manufacturing should have done, it has not done. That is the thing. That the GDP profile of India has shifted away from agriculture and to the service industry, but it is not very sustainable and until and unless manufacturing plays a big role. But manufacturing has not played such a big role as it should have done, and that is the part of the crisis, I think, if it is a crisis at all. That is, and yes, this decade has been a disappointment in that sense, that the labor absorption in manufacturing has not been to the extent that it should have been. The over dependence on agriculture is partly because of this, because the excessive labor in agriculture has not been diverted to the manufacturing sector. So,
but luckily, a big chunk of that is now being diverted to animal husbandry and Gaurakshaki.
And the service industry and telecom actually grew on its own because the government, the service industry and telecom grew on its own without government interference because they hadn't woken up to it. It just grew on its own without any incentives from the government. It was ignored by the government. Once they started interfering and realized that this is huge and started putting in policy, created a telecom ministry, that's when the trouble began.
Well,
right, Puja?
Yeah.
See, we are all economists. See, Puja, this is
but
how
that's
you
it. A sector like telecom cannot be without policy because there's spectrum involved and all that.
That's true, but it grew without policy.
That's the whole argument of my book, that our politicians just don't listen to expert advice, and they assume that an economy as large as India, as complex as India, can be just
run on whims,
can be driven by policies that are crafted keeping political objectives in mind with complete disregard for, underlying economics. And this is not just, the Indian economy has very special characteristics and needs. So you also cannot just, cut and paste economics from the Western world and apply it here. So it needs very special
I have always said this.
attention, and politicians just keep ignoring that unless, there's a Lehman crisis happening and you fear that you're going to have a repeat of 1991. That's when the only time you give a free hand to your economists.
That shit's gonna hit the fan. Now, speaking of ignoring things, sir, please inform us. Context: the Chief Justice of India, Justice Gogoi, was accused by a staffer, a lady, that he made unwanted advances towards her, and when she rebuffed him, he got her arrested under 420 accusation. Basically, she's been arrested for fraud, for 50,000 rupee fraud. Very efficient Delhi police. Proud of you. Pat yourselves on the back. The same Delhi police who could not provide enough evidence to convict a man who'd shot a girl in the bar in front of 100 people. But anyway, you obviously have been able to crack down on this case. Sir, your reporter has been in the court for the last 3-4 days. There are many different things happening. Arun Jaitley is also saying Gogoi ki jai ho.
The first is her story. She joined Supreme Court in 2014. Very junior employee. As junior as a clerk, judicial clerk. And she was pursuing her LLB also. In 2014 she joined. In 2016 she started working with Gogoi. He was not the Chief Justice at that point of time. And then Justice Gogoi started giving her some important cases. He started giving her a lot of importance. Say whatever case studies he required, so he always used to ask her to get those case studies. And then later he also, when he became Chief Justice, he transferred her to his office at home. So she was given a lot of importance. When I say a lot of importance, a junior employee like her was, invited for his swearing-in ceremony. And with her husband. So and there were pictures also taken with Justice. Justice used to give her a lot of importance. So she alleges that in October 2018, so twice he tried to grope her. So and
she put this in an affidavit and gave it to 22 judges because it was a
the thing is she did not say anything till she was pushed to a corner. That is the thing. So she
pushed to a corner, as in?
Pushed to the wall. She was first removed from her post. She was terminated. She lost her job.
Her brother-in-law was
Her
fired.
husband was lost job. Brother-in-law lost a job. And then there was a false case against them. She was.
So basically, she's saying that because she rebuffed his advances,
yes,
all these things came down on her. The Delhi police,
this is too much of a coincidence that in the same family, the husband is getting terminated.
Everyone got fired together.
She's getting terminated. Her brother-in-law is getting terminated, and one brother-in-law who was, I think, handicapped. This Chief Justice from his quota had given a job to him in the Supreme Court. So even he was removed soon after the incident. So after when she was just she couldn't see. She can't do anything at that time. She went to a bunch of senior lawyers and who can help her.
Now, how does this work? Now, there are 3 judges who are sitting on this. One of them is a lady judge who will decide whether. What will they decide? They will. What's the question? Let me just finish my question.
The first sitting, Chief Justice Gogoi had no business to be on that bench.
No, what was that sitting? What were they deciding on?
He should have recused himself.
He's the one who has decided the bench. These 3 persons.
He's decided the bench. First, he sits on the bench, which he shouldn't have on his own case. He should have immediately recused himself. So then he gives a long speech about his account and how he only has 6 lakhs and this and that and all that. That was a big mistake. It's judicially wrong for him to have sat there.
It's extremely simple.
Then he decides who are the judges. It just stinks of...
what is this bench going to decide? That
No.
Because this judge can't this bench is not going to decide whether he's guilty or not,
this
right?
court is
it's not a question of guilty. It's a Vishakha kind of committee,
So they will decide whether there's enough evidence to prosecute him under the
whether whatever she is saying, it has credentials.
So this is the ICC of the Supreme Court.
See, the judges, the Indian judiciary has for decades avoided any accountability. Every time they asked for accountability, they behave like we are above the law. Well, you're not. It's a democracy.
Then there was
so if you're going to use contempt of court like the British used against the natives when we were fighting the British, it is something that needs to be looked at.
Then another narrative started, which was to counter it, is
a lawyer called Utsav Bains has said that this is a conspiracy against the court to
and even Jaitley, I mean, they said it's a part of a larger conspiracy,
which involves middlemen, it involves industrialists, and they want to.
It has been given in a sealed cover. So we don't know what the basis of this larger conspiracy is.
I think we're entitled to know why the sealed cover.
Yeah.
Because it's not national security.
And the ICC, so to speak,
these
who's
are
going
not
to decide on
quotations
this?
for the Raffaelli deal.
Is justice.
I'm sorry, I call it Raffaelli.
Raffaelli, we all call it Raffaelli. Assi ta Punjabiyan hoye. Justice is essay. What do you call it, Raphael or Raffaelli? What do you say, Miss?
We're Punjabis, you call it Raffaelli.
So
why is this in a series? I find the kind of hubris that we will be above the law all the time and threatening with contempt of court all the time. It's unacceptable.
This women... This women's narrative is pretty strong, I must say. And over a period of time, she collected every evidence. She has even recorded the voice of a SHO who was trying to mediate. It's a 30 minutes video.
Yeah.
So this is, I think her narrative has got a lot of credentials.
So that is the context of this. Well, I have nothing to say on this. Anand Vardhan.
The Chief Justice terminated the services of the person who has accused him of sexual misconduct. You have to see that Supreme Court, the primary problem is that Supreme Court, apart from being a judicial body, also acts as an administrative body. And the Chief Justice is not only the judicial head of Supreme Court, he is also the administrative head of it. So he initiates action on issues which are purely departmental, disciplinary, like this one was. And in that capacity, he has this extraordinarily discretionary power which needs to be relooked at, and maybe this case can be a proper context of reviewing those exceptional powers of the Chief Justice of India. And the distinction between the administrative functions of the Supreme Court and the judicial functions of the Supreme Court. That is one. Second is, of course, the inevitable politicization of this. And every political party has found it convenient to politicize such cases.
But in this one, everyone's surprisingly staying out of it. This particular one.
Chief Justice of India himself politicized it. In his order, he said that some critical cases were going to come up for next week, and I see a plot in it. So
did he kind of vaguely suggest that the PMO was involved in this? Or am I reading too much into it?
No opposition. In fact, the order on...
No, he said bigger conspiracy.
A bigger conspiracy.
He kept it vague.
He said big offices are involved in it.
No, he kept it vague.
Which could be the big office?
I mean, conspiracy.
I would say the PMO is only big office.
Three cases that he hinted at. One case that was coming for was Rahul Gandhi's contempt remark that Rafael thing that he had wrongly attributed to Supreme Court. That was so. That was one. Anyway, what I'm saying is that if we jog our memory 4 or 5 years back, Justice Ganguly of Supreme Court of India was accused of sexual misconduct by an intern in a 5-star hotel in Delhi.
Yep.
And that time, Mr. Arun Jaitley and some other people, I am forgetting their name, they made a very powerful group, and they said that action should be taken against Justice Ganguly. And now the roles have reversed. That is it. That time Congress was finding it convenient to shield somebody. Now BJP is trying to is finding it convenient to shield somebody. Incidentally, Justice Gogoi was was once Congress's poster boy just 2 years back
When he held
when
the press conference.
held that revolutionary press conference, the so-called.
But I think the politics hasn't come in as yet.
No, but the thing is that the judges have, over the years, always made laws unto themselves, for themselves, such as the collegium choice of judges, that changed how judges were appointed and gave them more power. Then I think it was in 2004 or 6 where they had tried to, the government at that time had tried to put in some breaks by creating a committee for accountability. I think it was called, I forget exactly what the name was, and that was scuttled.
But on the collegium, I will say this because I remember moderating a debate on the NJC, the National Judicial Accountability Commission or Committee, whatever it's supposed to be, when that whole jhagada was happening, 3 years ago, between the government and how should the collegium change. The formula put in front of us right now, I would still stay with the collegium than let the ruling government decide. Because the credibility of the court is still higher than that of the government. If you give it in the hands of the government of India, whoever that be,
True.
whether it's Modi or, I would rather say, okay, do it in a non-transparent manner, but don't let Mr. Sibbal, Chidambaram and Manmohan do it for you. Or Modi, Amit Shah and Modi, Amit Shah. There's no third person in this case. Anyway, I have a couple of emails to read. Do you have anything to add to that, Puja?
I'd just say that in response to what you just said, I'd always prefer a system which is governed by rules rather than our perception of credibility of individuals. So I would want to have faith in the system, in the rules framework that governs the system, and not let these things be determined by my faith in individuals, because I have more credibility to me.
But as an institution, the government of India or
so I think your faith in government of India is less because of individuals rather than...
No, because of I have yet to see a government which is, it's like the army. I would trust the army more than I trust the police. It's not because my dad's in the army, but my experience with the army has been that at least 6 out of 10 people in the army will be honest. About half out of 10 will be honest in the police. So
that is because of the institutional framework of the army.
Just historically how
exactly.
It's been.
So that's what I'm trying to say, that I would always put my faith in an institutional setup rather than individuals, credibility of individuals.
Okay. So fine. So you did speak about this. I hope you will also speak about Priyanka should she have contested or not, but we will get to that. But I have a question on demonetization coming up. Before that, I have a couple of emails. We have a lot of subscribers writing, and because our subscribers, Puja, you will see, are very articulate and smart people, unlike us. Unlike me, sorry, the rest of them articulate and smart. So basically, the thing is, Puja, you, Madhu, Anand and Raman are here because most of our audience is very PhD type and they read, as you'll see the mails, they articulate themselves very clearly. I'm here to provide, it's like when you get Om Puri, Nasiruddin Shah and all these big people in the film, and then you also have Dada Konke. Hey, oi hoi, valle valle, to like that Johnny Lever moment. So I'm doing that. So don't be fooled that our audience is like that. Our audience is not like that. Our audience is very smart. So here, this mail is from Arun Ram from Hyderabad. Dear Abhinandan, I have had the pleasure of being a newslaundry subscriber for over a year. Thank you, Arun. It's your money and people like you that keep us going. Be like Arun, guys. Subscribe. Pay to keep news free. Hafta introduced me to the world of podcasts. I'm forever grateful for that. An oft-repeated but tired critic in Hafta by now is an imaginary conflict between left liberal and right conservative ideology. Somehow in the din of the heated debate, liberals, including self-proclaimed ones like Abhinandan, have become an epitome of illiberalism. The conservatives are clueless on the causes that define them. It is because Hafta panel assumes that they have to fight the liberal cause that they often overlook fleshing out various aspects of an issue. This used to be the USP of the Hafta. If you had a panel with a wide outlook, issues like Sabrimala or Balakot would have made for riveting debates. Unfortunately for the listeners, that was not to be. I believe majority of the Indians are actually centrists who don't carry the baggage of either one of the above. Centrism is not moderate, but rather supports strength, open-mindedness, and policy based on evidence, not ideology. Centrism is not constrained by a liberal or conservative camp. Some notable examples are Great Bong, Arnab Ray, Anand Ranganathan, Shiv Arur, Pranab Roy, and Rahul Kamal. I would like to hear from the panel on their views on centrism. Can they name some centrist commentators in the media? Abhinandan, liberalism.
The names he has given are not centrist.
No, we'll just talk about that. Abhinandan, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, not all of them.
It depends
Some
on where you are.
prominent writers.
It depends on where you are. Exactly what I feel. Everyone feels that they are
Exactly, it's where you're standing, where it becomes north, south, east, west.
Abhinandan, liberalism has lost its essence a long time ago. Dump it and embrace centrism. In the end, Hafta will be the real winner. Arun, I will embrace you first and then Hafta will be the real winner. A, for articulating so beautifully what you want to say. B, for supporting News Laundry. And C, even though you disagree with a lot of what I say, you still continue to listen to my bullshit. A, I will say this and then I'll pass it on to the panel. We'll start with Madhu and then Puja and then the rest. But I just want to say one thing. A, the names you've taken, I see Rahul, I don't know if he's a centrist because I don't think he has a position on anything. He's like,
he's a journalist.
Pame eh hoye te pame o hoye sab changa.
Like time will tell.
He will not even react to this woman in Bhopal who's just contesting whatever her, the loony. Yeah. Now, the terror accused, the loon fest, centerpiece. I mean, you can't not react to her. Now, I think there was one meme which very aptly showed what centrism. I don't believe centrism exists as a general kind of position. You can have a view on certain issues that have a center. For example, this meme was, and someone in India had redone it and I retweeted that at the time. And I'll just explain. On one side, there is a bunch of people saying, we want civil rights and equal rights for blacks. On the other side, there's a bunch of people saying, we want blacks as slaves. And there's one person standing in the middle with a placard that says compromise. Like,
First you said, let Madhu speak first. And then you started speaking.
No, I said, I'll just give you my piece. Then we'll go to Madhu.
My crowd says yes.
So, and the heading to that was, beware the idiot in the middle. On something like that, there is no center. So what is the center? Okay, we won't have slavery, but don't keep them in chains, give them Sundays off. Like, what is the center in that position?
No, he said a phrase which was very important in his definition of centrist. He said centrist is somebody
open-minded.
Who is open-minded, looks at the issues and based on the evidence takes the decision on what his position is. If that is his decision, that's his definition of centrist, I support that. I think if every individual did not take sides depending on I'm a bhakt or I'm not a bhakt or I'm a Congress supporter, if you took it on the basis of issues, then if that's a centrist, then it would be a better world.
But then the examples that he has taken...
That's a problem. Because I think his assessment of people who he thinks are centrist are clearly not.
Yeah. Now,
okay, Rahul is a journalist. He doesn't have a position. I think Shiv Arur has a pro-army position no matter what, which is fine. The rest, I beg to differ. They are clearly not...
No, also, I won't call that
centrist.
What is to say, how have I arrived at my decision? Have I arrived at my position based on open-mindedness or ideology? Who's to say?
No, I'll tell you who's to say, because if you see an interview with Akshay Kumar interviewing Narendra Modi, and your assessment of that interview is not based on what you see in the interview, but only based that I'm a Modi supporter no matter what. Or I'm a Congress supporter no matter what. So if I'm a Congress supporter, the interview is crap. No. And if I'm a Modi supporter, it is brilliant. So that, I think, defines what a centrist is, that you look at the interview and assess it for what it is.
I just think that's a wrong choice of word, because what Arun is suggesting is that someone who has an open-minded view will have a middle position on things. He or she will not. You can have an extreme view and be open-minded. So I think
also has an open mind.
Yeah. So I don't see how this is centrism. For example, now I defined one kind of stupidity, which is that one people are saying let's kill blacks, other people are saying about equal rights. We say let's do a compromise. I'm in the center. There's no center there. Secondly, let's say at a time when the Nirbhaya rape happened, and the whole conversation was about rape laws and how there's such low conviction rate, and there's some dude who starts making an Excel sheet on the amount of people who have falsely been accused of rape. It may be true. Maybe, I'll just finish. There may be 20 people who are falsely accused of rape, and that may be true, but at a time when this is the centerpiece, that is again not centrism. Again, according to me, that's stupidity.
No, but
it's
I think you're confusing what he's saying is different from what you're saying about this cartoon about slaves and taking a central position. That cartoon represents compromise. But a centrist does not represent compromise. It represents that I will look at the evidence.
Why is it called a centrist? I don't understand the word. What does centrist mean?
I'm going by his definition.
No, but you also have to go by the word.
No, the centrist has many different definitions. All right, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's basically somebody who will go either way.
You also have right of the center and left of the center.
You have right of center, left. So definitions are a difficult issue in terms of who defines them what. All right. For example, a leftist in America is actually a centrist or a rightist in India.
Yeah, of course, that's
leftist is totally not leftist.
Madhu, that's on economic issues.
On this, I think what he's saying is that he supports a person who looks at the issues rather than goes by an ideology, preconceived ideology, and a follower of one person.
I got that. Again, sorry, I'll just now go around, but I just want to have one more piece of what this guy says. Context is everything, according to me, Arun. In a context where people are being garlanded by cabinet ministers who were convicted of killing a man on cow, in that context, to point out that this has been happening for the last 50 years, in my view, is just stupidity, because that garlanding has not been happening. And as far as Arnab, I agree with you, he's a sensible person. I think you're confusing sensible with centrist. I think Arnab does not, I'm not talking about Goswami, but Ray does not defend the indefensible. Sometimes, many of these people start defending the indefensible. But Arnab has also tweeted this. This side's Tukde Tukde gang is the other side's intolerance. Fear-mongering and virtue signaling passes for analysis on channels. Again, it's a false equivalence. The Tukde Tukde gang that Primetime screams about is not equal to the intolerance debate. So, again, there's something called monkey balancing. That's not centrism. Monkey balancing is, in my view, stupidity. And it has nothing to do with a sensible take. Some people are sensible, some are not. They can be in the left, right. And also, if you're part of the BJP, you can be moderate or the extreme. But you're still part of an ideology.
Like Vajpayee and Modi.
Yeah, but you still belong to an ideology. You can't be like in the universal cosmos, in the ether of space. I'm like floating in the center. In the center of what? So anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Pooja, you go ahead, then the ladies, then Anand.
I think I agree with what Madhu said, and I just add to it that currently in India, I don't think it's ideology, that is determining where people stand, whether in the center or the left or the right. It is just one individual and, what they think of one individual. And the same demonetization, if it was announced by a government of another political color, people would have attacked it. But because it has been announced, because it was announced and implemented by somebody they support, they approve of it and they defend it. So I really do not think people are taking ideological positions here. I think they're just taking positions vis-a-vis how they feel about a certain individual.
But is there something as a centrist in your view? What is a centrist?
I think I agree with what Madhu says. My understanding is that a centrist is a person who doesn't always take a position on the left or on the right, but decides what they feel of a particular issue being discussed, and depending on that, their view may lean one way or the other. Never too far to the extremes, but a bit, one way or the other, and probably determined by their circumstances and their personal thinking about issues. But I don't think that the compromise between the two extremes every single time, I wouldn't say that is a centrist position.
So I give you an example. Like, I do not support people being killed for transporting cows. All right, I do not support a man who's suspected of having eaten beef even when he didn't, being killed. I don't support that. But do I support Narendra Modi's surgical strikes on Balakot? Yes, I do. So I'm not a rightist, but I still support him on that issue. I support him on his position on Pakistan. I do not, and I support him on many other issues also, including building toilets and all that, and what he said about women, the good stuff. But I may not support him in a lot of other things. So
yeah, but it's not about him; it's about an issue. You support
so that's what I'm saying. So a centrist would support on issue. That I do support him on Balakot. I do not support him on his position on keeping quiet when this violence takes place.
But why is Modi the fulcrum of this? What I'm saying is, forget Modi. on...
That's the discourse. That's how things have come to be.
Okay, anyway,
is my
I'm
point.
not saying from Modi's... forget Modi. Just on certain issues, there is no center on many issues. Many...
Yeah, there's no, center,
Yeah,
there's no center on a rape.
Yeah.
There's no center on that.
So,
a woman has been attacked violently
and
like
therefore some
December
of the
16th.
people he's
There's
named...
no center in that at all.
And some of the people he's named have tried to do a monkey balancing on issues where there is no center.
Yes,
so I
yes.
don't think that's at all centrist.
People
sensible.
he's named, I think maybe he's not seen enough of them or read enough.
Yeah, Anand, go ahead.
First, some clarity on what is centrist. So there is a technical definition of it also, which is quite different from what is now being seen in media discourse or even in social sciences. Now, centrist to begin with was a variant or an invention of being right and left. So the right was status quoist, the conservative was, left was very radical. So the centrist was for piecemeal change. Gradualists, gradual change, not very ham-handed radical ideas or closing every possibility of change, but piecemeal change. Whole parliamentary democracy is rooted in centralism, change by legislation, deliberation. That is centrist. So, but with time, it changed its meaning, and in economic sense, it means something different. It acquired a lot of other connotations. So, but basically, centrist was that piecemeal change, gradual change. So that is one thing. Second is, if you look at centrist through that lens, then you would look at centrism differently. That is my first point. Second is that I think examples have this, when you give examples of any label, but whether it is rightist, leftist or centrist, they may be, there is a lot of danger of them being the low-hanging fruit examples, means examples which are easy to attack, where your intellectual victories are easy. So one should avoid examples when criticizing or eulogizing any label, because if you are suppose a rightist or a centrist or a leftist, you are more there's a lot of possibility you will pick the weakest example to attack
the classic straw man.
To attack the so that is the third thing. Is for average people like us, for poor people like us, we are not rich enough to afford a label. So whoever pays me more, I will be that. If a leftist pays me more, I will be a leftist. if a rightist pays me, I will be a rightist. So I am in that category. So if a centrist pays me more, I will be a centrist. So I am too poor to afford a label. So
Raman sir.
No, I think I agree with Anand more or less. I mean, he's defined it so well. This is the academic definition of centrist. But in this particular letter, I think he is completely confused with the examples. Like Anand Ranganathan is calling him the centrist. Sorry.
But again, on what issue? I don't know what the technical decision, but based on my worldview, there is no universal ether floating where there is a center. The center, like in the film, the tango lesson, find your equilibrium, and you find your equilibrium in your context. So I'm afraid I reject the whole centrist as a theme. There is no such thing as centrist.
People also confuse liberal with leftist.
Yeah, you can be. I mean,
so that is another problem.
So thank you so much, Arun, for that email. I have a couple more emails which I will just read together, then we can get back to the panel, because I really want to get back on this Priyanka Gandhi not contesting in Banaras, and there's all sorts of fights on Twitter, and much as I criticize everybody for framing their debates based on Twitter, I just thought this one was too tempting to not also get a piece of. This email is from Gautam Bhaskar. He critiques Kishwar's opinion on Julian Assange from last podcast. Dear Newslaundry team, long-time subscriber and Hafta listener here. I'm writing to express my discontent at Kishwar Desai's comments on Hafta 222, specifically her critique of Julian Assange and the WikiLeaks publishing of the Manning leaks. The devastating WikiLeaks revelation, including the infamous collateral murder footage of the US military causing hundreds of civilian casualties, including women and children, the US State Department lobbying on behalf of American MNCs to kill minimum wage legislation in an earthquake-ravaged Haiti, etc., are sobering enough to warrant, at the very least, a serious analysis of the implications of Assange's arrest on journalists working with whistleblowers in any capacity. I was disappointed to find out that Desai, notwithstanding her prolific writing and journalistic career, was ill-prepared and, dare I say, ill-equipped to comment on the topic. She constantly let her personal feelings of Assange take over, almost shouted down anyone who tried to interject, and added nothing to the discussion apart from non-sequiturs like, he was acting like a hero, he's not a real journalist, he was having a lot of fun. This is not to say she shouldn't ever be on the Hafta. Just when you discuss a wide variety of topics that made news last week was perhaps not the right platform. I tend to agree with the other listener, RH, about doing book reviews or NL interviews with people whose expertise is limited and who have books to promote, like Puja. Although I disagree with their objection to Sudhita Mandal, who I thought was great. Much love from another run-of-the-mill Vides dwelling male subscriber. What is Vides? V-I-D-E-S? Vides dwelling? Does anyone know the meaning of Vides dwelling? Okay, wide. Maybe I'm missing something. I will continue to proselytize News Laundry to friends and family, albeit in my own introverted manner. Thank you, Gautam. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your mail and your feedback and views. Appreciate it. And Kapil has written a very small 50-word email. He says, "Hi News Laundry, you are doing a great job. I would like to make a suggestion. You should add a page on your website of equipment you need for production, sort of an Indiegogo campaign. Surely many people would like to contribute. Keep up the good work." Kapil, thank you so much. We thought of doing that.
Let's put a jib.
The jib, kaun dega hame? But right now we have just
make a list. We can make a list. Add a jib.
We can
just have a crane camera going everywhere.
That is what I was going to tell Kapil कि ज़्यादा लालच नहीं जरूरी कि अब सब कुछ मांगो फिर कुछ नहीं मिलता. अभी हम बस इलेक्शन के लिए पैसे मांग रहे हैं. आप अभी वो दे दो. बाद की बात में देखी जाएगी.
तुम्हें एक पैसा दोगे.
हाँ, तुम्हें 10 लाख मिलेंगे. दे माता के नाम तुझे अल्लाह रखे. So let me start now. Raman sir, why don't you start? On this election, we are back to the election. Priyanka Gandhi is now not contesting, that Rai guy is contesting. Like, would it have been a good move in your view? Not that you ever do a tea leaf gazing on election. And she wasn't going to contest. Why was she giving these cute smiles? Will you contest? Pata nahi, wo batayenge to. Na bol do yaar. What is it, drama?
No, I think it was a kind of teaser. People who are close to this family, they say that they do not, anything which is dramatic, they run away from it. The family runs away from it. And this particular case,
would have been very dramatic.
It would have been very dramatic. So that is why I think she just teased. I mean, when she said, if the party says...
That's a really good assessment, because when there have been opportunities during their, when they were in power, such as the protests against on December 16th rape, people were not protesting against the government, but the government perceived it as that. And Rahul Gandhi would have done well to have gone there and said, I sympathize, I understand. But that's dramatic. He was advised not to. Same thing happened in the Anna Hazare case. People were saying, why doesn't he go there and talk to me? It'll take the wind out of the sails. But that again is too dramatic.
Right.
So they always take a safe route.
I don't know, tearing up that legislation or that ordinance of Manmohan Singh and throwing it and rolling up his sleeve was quite a
That was high drama.
That was melodramatic.
That was crazy.
That was. So maybe one of the contradictions, but impulsive, in this particular case...
impulsive and crazy, because it was just so ill-advised to do that to his own Prime Minister, undermine him while he's out of the country.
There's another view that if she had contested, she would have, got a platform. Maybe even if she doesn't win, she would have made, some roadways into politics. Her stature would have come, immediately, just like this guy tried, Kejriwal tried.
She'd also have to face कि मोदी ने हरा दिया.
Yeah, but ठीक है. But what about you, Pooja?
I just feel, I'm not a political analyst, but I just feel that as somebody who watches television and was watching all these reports of her having
which is what makes you a political analyst, just
having teased me as a viewer of these news reports, my expectation was built up about her considering polling and assessing public mood on her possibility of contesting against the Prime Minister, and then to withdraw that and suggestion and bring in somebody who's been their contestant earlier too, seems to me like she's developed cold feet. I may be wrong. Maybe it was all along thought of as a strategy or whatever. But the impression that I get is that she has developed cold feet, and she's not going to be able to dispel that. And that, I don't think, gives her an advantage or her party an advantage in this election.
Yeah. Anand?
Okay, 2-3 things. So what would be the cost-benefit analysis of her contesting there? So the cost would be that if she was defeated by a huge margin, so it would be a very it would have a very demoralizing effect on Congress workers by a huge margin, a loss. Second is that in electoral strategies, you always have this underestimation bias. Underestimation bias is that the strategists or even psephologists are very keen on the fact that they should be saying who will win or lose, but even if they know the margin of defeat, they would not say, because people will forget. Even if you fail, or if you are very wrong in saying the margin of defeat, people will forget, but they don't want to get the winner or loser wrong. So the internal assessment of the Congress at the first place would have been that the margin would not be great. But now they are saying that Mr. Modi is unbeatable by a huge margin there. That is the second thing. But the huge benefit of it, for which I think Congress was interested, was that a very strategic one, that Varanasi votes on May 19th. And by doing so, even if Mr. Modi was confident of winning it, he would have been tied down to Varanasi.
Yeah, he would have spent all his time.
He would spend, say, at least 7-8 days out of the remaining 20 days there, and it would have curtailed his campaigning throughout the country by a great deal. So that would have been a strategic benefit for Congress, but that has not been achieved by, as Puja said, she developed cold feet. Maybe she was eager to fight, but Mr. Rahul Gandhi...
I think she was eager.
Whether or not she developed cold feet, that's the impression as a viewer I get. And I think that they've already lost on that account. So all their strategic thinking, one way or the other,
I think
has
she hasn't
gone.
developed. But yes, impression is such.
But by Anand's thesis, she could have been the Ghatotkach to his Arjun. Now, those of you who are good Hindus would know the reference and the context, that why Ghatotkach was so important to save Arjun. So she could have been that person. And for those of you who are not good Hindus, Karn had the Shakti of Indra that was unstoppable, but he could only use it once. And whoever he'd use it for would die. So he had kept it for Arjun. And the only person who could vanquish that whole army and no one could take him on was Bhim's son Ghatotkach. So Ghatotkach is credited with having saved Arjun's life, because had it not been for Ghatotkach, Arjun would have died. So, thus, my showing off my good Hindu credentials, all you fraud Hindus. I have a couple of announcements and I have one more email. Well, those of you who have been complaining about our tech, you've been noticing our tech has started getting better. Podcast player doesn't crash. So we're still fixing a few glitches, and because of that, we have taken down the paywall till all those glitches are completely fixed, because a lot of you weren't being able to access the podcast even after having subscribed, because the automated system of getting a subscription activated was sometimes acting up. That is why the podcast has been free for the last 2 episodes, and as is this one. So to kind of help us, if you're not subscribing, what you can do is tag 10 of your friends on the Hafta post on Twitter or Facebook, and then you can send us a screenshot. We'll send you a t-shirt, because you'll be spreading the word of Hafta and Newslaundry so more people can subscribe. So tag any 10 of your friends on Twitter or Facebook with the Hafta post and send a screenshot to contact@newslaundry.com to get the free goodies. Also, if you want to contribute, you can PayPal us to prashant@newslaundry.com. If you don't want to use the credit card or the debit card on our website, you can PayPal us at prashant@newslaundry.com. Now, coming to other election-related stuff, Delhi. Since we're sitting in Delhi, and Punjab, Sunny Deol joining, Gautam Gambhir contesting. Madhu, you start. What are your views of all these stars? And is it desperation or is it smart?
I think it's crazy. That's all there is to it. I mean, last minute में किसी को डाल दो.
But Sunny
These
Deol.
people have no history of any knowledge of governance or politics or what. So I don't know. I mean, it's really.
This is the way they try to kill anti-incumbency and bring in new faces, and especially the ones who can ride on their popularity. So cricketer can ride on his popularity as a cricketer. The boxer will do the same.
Boxer नहीं सर, actor है वो, लगता boxer है. Sunny Deol.
But do people vote?
No, not Sunny Deol.
अच्छा Vijayendra,
No,
Congress
if you're a fan of a cricketer, would you vote for him politically?
I will never vote for him.
No, would average people
of
do
course.
it?
You
Average
vote for
people do
someone
it.
you recognize. That's
Yes,
all.
Average people do it.
In 2004, I had covered Mr. Dharmendra's campaign in Bikaner.
That sounds so strange, na, Mr. Dharmendra. Anyway.
And everywhere he went, people told him, I went with him, I trailed his convoy for many of his meetings, and I found local people telling him that they had everything they needed. The only thing that they expected from their MP was a drinking water facility. Bikaner is a constituency that has huge drinking water problem, and the reason he had been chosen was because apparently there is a presence of Jats in Bikaner, and so at every public meeting, these are small meetings where 150, 200 people, he would get onto the stage and he would reel off dialogues from Sholay, and he would say that I'm going to climb onto a water tank. When I go to Parliament, like I climbed onto a water tank in the film Sholay, I would go and tell Atalji, mere gaon walo ko pani de do. Otherwise, I'm going to jump off and things like that.
And Atalji chakki pissing and
exactly.
pissing.
And people really loved that, and he won. But for years after that, I used to get calls from people I had quoted in my story who had taken down my number, and I had taken their numbers, and they said, he never visits us, and he just never comes in. Can you convey our message to him? And
Did
that
he win again?
I think he never fought again after that.
Never fought again.
I see.
So I think that's pretty much how it goes. It's pretty much the same with Hema Malini. She just never visits her constituency.
टंकी वाला dialogue वहाँ भी बोला, अभी भी बोला.
Yeah,
But
now he's done
Shatrughan
it
Sinha
again.
keeps winning. He's been winning for...
No, there is a difference.
हाँ, बताओ. What is your view?
No, it is a different. But Patna Sahib, he wins not because initially he won because he was a film star, but that
He's been a minister.
But that factor vanished after. Patna Sahib is a constituency which is has a very high population of castes, lalas. Lalas not in Delhi. In the castes are maybe in Punjabi the Bhatnagars, equivalent of Bhatnagars, the castes. So in Bihar they call castes lalas. So it has a very high population of castes, and BJP always fielded him there. He would find it very, very difficult to win this year. Not because he is not a BJP candidate, he does not have the backing of the cadre. And also because our rival caste leader Ravi Shankar Prasad is being fielded there, though both are from very elite families, both are absentees in the same way as Dharmendra was, and but I think the caste factor and a lot of mobilization by BJP made things easy for Shatrughan Sinha this year. Not, but there is a factor which may help him, the sabotage of the third caste leader, that is R.P. Sinha, who is a very close confidant of Mr. Nitish Kumar, and he was denied a ticket. So BJP is trying to persuade him from not engineering a sabotage. Otherwise, Shatrughan Sinha is gone this year.
Acha? You usually don't predict an election, but let's see.
If the sabotage does not materialize, there is no way he is winning.
Acha. Madhu, what is your view on the Vijayendra Gupta बोल रहा हूँ, the boxer Vijayendra Singh and
No, I mean he said everything.
Raman sir?
I said it.
One thing is also that in a city like Delhi, the national parties like Congress and BJP have not developed a kind of public contact or the visibility of public representative or a kind of civic culture where politician is seen. Unlike, say, Mumbai, where Shiv Sena, for whatever it is, has a very robust public culture of civic representation. You can see them in every nooker. They have a committee and
That's
this.
true.
And this facelessness of national political parties in a civic space like Delhi gets reflected in these borrowed candidates from, say, film
But the
world or
only
sports.
one who has that ubiquitous presence but is faceless is the Radha Swami Satsang Vyas. I see their boards everywhere, even in Delhi, no matter where you're going. So Babaji, your contestant election. अब शिवेंद्र मल्होत्रा का तो पता नहीं क्या होगा. Photos की तो बंटाधार हो गया.
Who's now leading the Radha Swami?
I think that one of their father-in-laws. Okay, I have another mail. This is Bharat Gudiyal says, Goody Hal. Hi Hafta team. I'm going to be honest and say that I'm writing this mail impulsively after getting out of the shower. Well, as long as you're clean, Bharat, because we don't take dirty mails. Like many people, I spent my time in the shower mulling over and analyzing things, so I apologize in advance if I start to ramble. This is also my first email to the podcast, so I'm excited. Bharat, first of all, I know you're not in India because otherwise you wouldn't have the luxury of standing in the shower so long. Kya pata kab pani chala jaye. I've been a subscriber for around 3 years now, and Hafta is legitimately my favorite podcast and the highlight of the week. So keep up the good work. The topic I want to talk about is a large divide between right-leaning and left-leaning journalists and the constant bickering I see among them on Twitter. Cue Abhinandan's standard comment about Twitter. Well, I won't make it this time. The thing I've noticed is that people attach motive to things, implying that people know the truth and are blatantly lying or misleading the public. I may be naive, but I see it as people's natural biases kicking in and then sharing their view of the world. It especially saddens me to see people like Ranga Uncle, Jaggi, Swati Chaturvedi, Shivam Vij, etc., just to name a few, use dehumanizing language when referring to people who don't see things the same way, calling people vipers, vermin, etc. Are these people really so blinded that they cannot differentiate between points of view and legitimate attempts to mislead? Or am I wrong that this is all some giant conspiracy that I can't see? A naive and sometimes optimistic subscriber, Bharat. So Bharat, thank you for the mail. Do you know they're making a film after you? It's starring Salman Khan. Anyway, yeah, I agree with you, dehumanizing language, but I just think Twitter is where online disinhibition syndrome kicks in. Time magazine's done a cover story on this, so things you wouldn't ordinarily say, you say on Twitter because there's no immediate reaction. So sometimes I've noticed people who are really nasty and, obnoxious on Twitter, when you meet them face to face, are very nice. So I still believe face-to-face interface.
Or they dodge you.
No, they're just nicer.
No, I have a relative who's abusing me on Twitter, and I went to a family dinner. It was a big dinner, and every time I inched close to her, she would just dash off to the other side of the room. And she'd been busy abusing me, calling me noxious, this, that, and everything. And I warned her once. I said, I block people who label, put labels stuck on me. You are no one to define me, so watch it.
But yeah, I agree with you, Bharat. On Twitter, people, it's their worst. I think people are their worst on Twitter. So I would not take that as the default setting of people. But anyway, panel, tell us what you think on Bharat's view. Anyone?
No, they can be their best also, because anyway it's a public domain. So the words they use in conversation, they would not use there. It depends on person to person. Because whatever be the suspension of innovations, but at the end of the day, it's a public domain. Everyone is seeing what you are writing. So people are very careful also what they write.
Sometimes they, I think, play up to a gallery, because these days it's become a legitimate career to be a TV debater. I think Manisha did a piece on that. And like you were saying, Puja, that I'm not an analyst. I was like, dude, of course you are. If you watch TV, you're an analyst. The Poonawalla brothers, अब सोहेल सेठ नहीं है. अब सोहेल सेठ, पहले सोहेल सेठ और वो होता था, क्या नाम, भट्ट का बाप, आलिया का, महेश भट्ट, वो अपनी ऐसी कच्छ ऐसे वो खुजाता रहता था और ऐसे बैठा बैठा अपनी डेनिम शर्ट में, आई थिंक निधि, मैंने कहा पहले तो यार धोके तो आजा अपनी जांघिए और अंडर आर्मपिट, और वो खुजाता रहता. उसके बाद लोगों ने कहा ये तो बड़ा जी क्लास है, तो सूट बूट में आ गया सोहेल सेठ. कुछ भी किस पर बहस हो रही है, इकोनॉमी पर सोहेल को बुला लो. अच्छा, किस पर बहस हो रही है, ब्रांडिंग पर सोहेल को बुला लो. किस पर बहस हो रही है, जो मोदी पर, उसको सोहेल को बुला लो. अब सोहेल के बदले कई लोग ऐसे आ गए हैं, मतलब जो टीवी पैनल में बैठे रहते हैं. किसी बार भी हमारे भी मित्र है कहीं जो कुछ भी किसी भी पैनल में कुछ भी बहस हो वहाँ पहुँच जाता है. तो पूजा जी आपको
there's a general, I think, cheapening of words like experts, analysts, reforms when we talk about economic
they first
policy.
become Twitter personalities and then they...
So that is what also Twitter is being used for, actually. And then this, by the way, I'm going to come after this. I want to discuss something of grave importance, and you will have a view on this, Puja, I'm sure, because this is a very serious discussion, and I honestly am conflicted on this. Because what does normalizing mean? So please think about this. I'll read the 2 mails and I'll come back to you, and I'll start with you this time, Madhu, without anything to say on this.
Normalizing about what?
Pragya Thakur is a candidate, right? Whether she's accused of terrorism, she has said stuff like "Humne wo dhancha giraya," but she is a candidate.
I didn't see her up there on the dhancha.
So
in any of the footage.
Now she is there.
She's claiming.
If a woman was up there, we would have caught it.
No, she's saying she was part of the mob. But whether she was or wasn't,
she said, "मैं ढांचा के ऊपर खड़े होके."
Acha, she said that.
गर्व से
she's guessing.
She's daring.
But that's okay if Modi can...
She's daring, yeah. Footage में तो आना चाहिए. The woman up on the thing. You think the camera people wouldn't have caught her?
Madhu, if Modi can say कि ओबामा और मैं ना बड़े good friend, तू क्या तक बुलाता है मुझे, तू क्योंकि वहाँ हिंदी सीख लिया, और या तो मोदी जी ने इंग्लिश नहीं सीखी क्योंकि उनको पता ही नहीं भाई you is there is, you know, the second person pronoun, there is आप, and anyway we discussed on the other one, we'll discuss that. But there was criticism of Srinivas Sanjay, and when he went to interview, she said मैंने मौन धारण किया हुआ है. So he clicked a photograph and put it on Twitter that she is doing मौन, so she cannot talk to me. The accusation was you're normalizing her. Someone who interviewed her, you're normalizing her. Now I do think that some of the interviews are very soft, but because of her credentials or lack of them or her notoriety, how does a journalist engage with someone like this without normalizing her, whatever that means? So that's what I'm going to come to. Think about that. I have these 2 emails. This one is from CV Anthony. Hey CV, hi, I renewed my NL account after a while. Thank you for your money. It pays for Bijli, which has gone twice so far, but it pays for the rest. Great to be back and listen to the Hafta. I've heard Abhinandan state in an earlier Hafta podcast that he invites many right-wing journalists and commentators on the show, but they refuse to come. So is it possible for New Zealand to name the ones who have been invited or who will be coming in a future episode and the reasons they don't show up, if you can? Subscribers should be made aware, and cowards, right-wingers must be known. Another issue I have with Newslaundry is that as soon as I subscribe, you release free Hafta episodes. So is there a plan to guarantee that subscribers get certain numbers of paid content, or is it only monthly? Ideally, paid subscribers should get 4 Hafta episodes. After all, the feeling is genuine of listening to free content when you just paid to keep news free, your own tagline. And after that, he's given a link to a song from the 80s or 90s, and the 90s का होगा on channel V, पैसा ये पैसा के मुझे मिल जो चाहे थोड़ा पैसा ऐसा वैसा. That song he sent. Well, Anthony, I'll tell you, first of all, I don't want to name the people who don't show up, because if they don't want to be, I mean, that much respect I think I have to give. But yes, we invite many people who don't come. Personally, I think they don't come because on Twitter, the kind of stuff they defend face-to-face is very difficult to defend those positions. You know, just like when you're trying to do monkey balancing between a Sadhvi Pragya and, you know, some other petty criminal. Or, you know, sometimes it's very difficult to defend the garlanding of Gobhaks, because on Twitter there's no pushback. And typically, I could be wrong and I'd be happy to be corrected, some very ridiculous positions taken because of what Puja was saying, because of wanting to support Modi. It's difficult to defend those face-to-face. That's why they don't show up. That's my view. As far as the free Hafta is concerned, like I was saying, we are sorting out a bunch of tech glitches. One of the things that we're incorporating is you can also subscribe directly through Facebook, which is not possible right now. Once all that is done, everything will go behind the paywall. Then you will not be able to, you know, view this without paying or listen to it without paying. But so that's why. But thanks for your feedback, and thank you for your subscription. Yeah. So Madhu, you please start. I'll save the last 2 mails for the end. What I said is what is normalizing? What do you do?
How does a journalist interview someone like Sadhvi
without the accusation that you're normalizing such a extreme position?
I don't think it's possible to normalize any politician. I think a journalist just does his job, asks the questions, and that word normalizing, I think when you interview anybody, a lot of viewers come up with this, that why did you give this person a platform? I don't think when you interview someone, you're giving them a platform.
As long as there's pushback and you're not accepting everything they say.
Exactly. So you're not necessarily giving them a platform.
But without pushback?
No, you have to push back at all, whatever anyone says, regardless of your own political position, you have to question no matter what. Point is that there have been 2-3 times when I was told to stop giving a platform to the Pakistani ambassador because we used to go to him when something happened, there was a border, this thing or whatever, there was disagreement or some shouting going on between India and Pakistan. We would go and interview, and I was told that, listen, they don't give any platform to the Indian ambassador or Indian politicians or whatever. Why are we giving him a platform but usually I would find that the journalist would give the Pakistani ambassador as a good rebuttal on everything that he said. So I think as long as that's there, as long as the balance is created by the journalist, I think it's okay.
Okay. Puja, what is normalizing and how do you not normalize?
Makhan interviews are bad journalism in any case.
So it's not about normalizing, it's just bad journalism.
I don't know, how people normalize. I think when you approach a terror accused who's also a candidate for a general election seat, or anybody else for that matter, your brief is that you have to bring out their plan, their personality, what they've done in the past, what they plan to do in the future, positive or negative, whatever it is, you have to pose the questions and they give you the answers, and then the viewers or the readers make an impression about the individual. In case of terror accused Sadhvi Pragya, you ask the questions that are relevant to her candidature, to what she has done before she got nominated by her party, and what she thinks she can contribute. She may say that she's going to bring down even more mosques than she has. Whatever it is, let her say that, and that'll help people make their decisions. But if you're going to focus not on these and more softer questions, such as I remember in the case of Yogi Adityanath, he was sitting with monkeys who were his pets and things like that, then you are sort of diverting from the core issues relevant to an election and a selection of a candidate. And
you're not doing him because of his monkey fetish or whatever.
So I'd say some bit of what we used to call in the good old days the mood and the color is essential to every copy and every interview, but that can't be the core of it. And I find with most journalists and most such interviews, these things dominate, and I think that's why journalists get accused of normalizing.
Anand sir,
two things. First is I agree with her that the person interviewing a controversial person is not important. The person who is being interviewed is important, and the readers or the viewers want to listen to the person being interviewed. Not I am interested in what she has to say, not how hard this person interviewing is. So. And in this age, when you have preconceived ideas about the political inclinations of the journalists, it becomes very easy to pigeonhole them that this will be this kind of interview, this will be this kind of interview. Now, in that case, it is important that you ask questions, controversial questions, for which she is a controversial figure, but it is not a debate to be settled in an interview. It is a platform for her to convey her views about certain questions to the viewers.
And you to challenge those so that she has to really explain them or think them through.
But there are journalists, there are very pliable journalists, but there are also journalists who convert it into a kind of boxing game, like I am hard, let me the current Thapar school of interviewing. So now that is also not advisable in that way. Now second is that normalization. Now we have in the last Hafta discussed how I see her candidature as means my analysis of that why BJP made her a candidate. So it was my analysis of the information asymmetry on which BJP worked that way. Now, but in an election, I think this accusation is unjustified that why you are covering a candidate.
Yeah.
I mean,
If she's a candidate, she's a candidate.
At the end of the day, Bhopal is a Lok Sabha constituency. She is one of the chief contenders there. You have to cover her. So
and she is the motif for something.
Yes.
So, Raman sir?
I think in TV, the color is all that matters. So if on all the TV, not that I support it, but on
that's the
TV,
nature
what I see that
Substitutes for
Rahul
research.
Kanwal is playing cricket with that Lalu's son, who was a cricketer. So he's playing cricket with him and interviewing him. So likewise with Pragya, you would like to see her feeding cows. Okay, this is what all we saw on TV. But having said that, I think people like Pragya, they are, they are antidote in themselves. I mean, whatever question you ask, but she has to speak, her mind. For example, I mean, I think one of the interviews that I saw where she's talking about, if anti-clockwise, if you caress a cow,
हाँ, पीछे से आगे कर दो, BP चला जाएगा.
I don't have a problem with that.
So what I'm saying that इसमें normalizing की जरूरत ही नहीं.
No, but people went crazy that, making fun of her about your BP will come down if you do this. I think there's a lot to be said where petting, stroking an animal or a loved one does help
Calm
you
you.
mentally and calm
Sure,
you down and all that. So because she's been branded as this, crazy Sadhvi, BJP, saffron, ye sab, and everything that she says has become so mockable. I think if you take it out of her context and put it with somebody else, say
Shashi Tharoor, let's take the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and Shashi Tharoor says that
when I stroke my, let me get a thesaurus first.
When I stroke my cat or my dog, it brings blood pressure down. It's acceptable, but I think there is this sort of snob value.
In her case, I think why it is an issue is that she is a terror accused. By giving her a chance to portray, let me say, for want of a better word, a softer side where she's talking about things that are calming, it helps her change her image of being a terror accused. And in that sense, the journalist has helped her do that. We don't know how true it is.
I disagree, because somebody who sees, who will see her as a terror accused and sees her suggesting that you stroke a cow backwards and it'll bring your blood pressure down, will see that as a joke and highly mockable. Nobody's minds are going to change. So I don't think that that's a valid issue in the sense that you're normalizing her.
I'm not saying they'll succeed, but isn't that the attempt?
I don't think so. I think Rahul Kanwal or whoever journalist is not in control of what she might suggest. She might suggest jump into the Ganga and Rahul might do it. But the point is that he had no control of that, what she was going to say about the cow. He didn't know that she was going to say that. So I think it's unfair to blame the journalist for normalizing her, because he has no control of what she's going to pop up with.
That's what I was saying, that on whatever question you ask Pragya, so she will just speak out her mind. I mean, she has karkare in her mind. The things which are dominating her mind are karkare, cow, mandir. But so this is all that whatever
what she said about karkare and the curse she put on him was in such
bad taste.
Bad karma, bad taste, bad everything. It's not what.
No, but
let me speak in her language. It's not what a good Hindu would do.
But the reverse example is the one you keep giving of Mr. Jayant Sinha. A very different image, but garlanding. I think those accused of murder.
Not just accused, convicted.
Convicted of murder. I think the reverse also works. No, we all did change our view of him after.
That. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So exactly. So that itself. So
it's a good point.
I do think there is. Normalizing does happen, and it happens like Pooja described, when your identity is something else, but you are, which is what basically the non-political interview, I mean, who was fooled? It was not a non-political Akshay Kumar's. It was just, मैं कितना cute हूँ, मैं ऐसा हूँ, और मैं चौक से अपने पीटी शू साफ करता हूँ, वो तो सब करते हैं यार. वो एक तो रोमांटिसाइजिंग एवरीथिंग, एंड ट्विटर पे लोग आर्ग्यू कर रहे हैं कि भाई I mean, I don't usually talk about I went from X school or Y school. चौक से पीटी शू साफ करने डून स्कूल में ही करते थे. ये कोई गरीबों का कोई वो सब करते हैं क्योंकि सब लेजी होते हैं. क्योंकि जब पीटी के लिए 5 मिनट बजे होते हैं, आप धो सकते नहीं, सूखेंगे नहीं, तो आप क्लासरूम में चौक लेके कलर करते थे. तो ये ऐसा नहीं कि वो हम बेचारे वही करते हैं, सब करते थे.
So if a
solution, our PT shoes were brown.
वाह, excellent. Then you could, I will not say, but but what the point I'm making
we
is
had white shoes.
That there is
12 रुपए का जूता आता था.
No, but there is something to be said about normalizing. And I think, like Bilkis Bano, who's just been given 50 lakhs by the court because she was failed by the state. And that man like Vanzara, who the government of Gujarat is not giving, the permission to investigate or prosecute. Men who have been accused of murder, cold-blooded murder, the establishment and the police. And the victim of that, Bilkis Bano. As a journalist, if I went to interview Bilkis Bano, knowing her history, and I went to interview Sadhvi Pragya, knowing her history, it would not be the same. And that is what I think is normalizing. If you treat both those the same, and it is just an interview. The question I asked Bilkis Bano, Acha, so you were gang raped during a riot and your entire family was killed. So now tell us what you think. Acha, Sadhvi Pragya, okay, you think that person should have died and, this terrorist. So, no.
No, every interview has to be different.
There's a context.
If you're a good journalist, in the context of who that person is and what their history is.
And in so far, I think many journalists are normalizing Pragya. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was saying is that, the case of the Prime Minister and Mr. Akshay Kumar, if he had answered all questions about his government, policy, record, etc., and then something like this is done, then perhaps it's, acceptable. But since this seems like a diversion to substitute for silence or a lack of scrutiny on the other side of his record, it's difficult to take it,
very well articulated.
Yes, no, you mentioned Shashi Tharoor in some context. So, so I want to draw a parallel. Now, Mr. Tharoor wrote a book, Why I Am a Hindu. And then
Anand Vardhan read it.
I read it.
He says, like with the...
No, it was Mr. Tharoor earlier when he started writing, he wrote 2-3 good books.
Yes.
After that, he is now a book a year industry. So if you read his books, you get a feeling how easy it is for some people to get published. Because now what I'm saying is that he wrote a book, Why I Am a Hindu. And then Hindol Sengupta was giving a talk, Why I'm a Hindu in Jaipur or somewhere. So I was seeing Twitter, some people making fun of him that doesn't he know that he's a Hindu? Doesn't he know? And nobody was questioning that. It is not a point of question. I am not saying a question. So why some same scrutiny is not for Mr. Tharoor? And in Mr. Tharoor's book, I am not saying that anyone who knows Sanskrit should only speak on Hinduism, but he has all second-hand reading. He quotes Dr. Radhakrishnan, Hindu View of Life, and some Oxford and Cambridge scholars who were Sanskrit scholars. And at least Mr. Hindol Sengupta knows Sanskrit and he knows scriptures. He is translating on his own.
Primary source.
He has gone through the rigor of mastering a difficult language like Sanskrit. Mr. Tharoor has not done any of that, and he is writing why I am a Hindu, and people are very cool with it. Okay, yes, and Mr. Hindol Sengupta was mocked at. Now this is kind of a kind of anomaly which is in the media discourse that I see.
Well, I think there might be a possibility that people are bored with the annual book, so not much attention is being paid.
No, actually his book was reviewed.
Also, it's so much easier seeing a talk. Okay, I'm going to read 2 more mails and I'll have your views on that. Then we'll be winding up. So please keep your recommendations ready. But before that, I asking you to give me some instance. And I had said right in the beginning. Actually, let me ask you that question first. Then I'll get to the emails. I said ask you about demonetization. So you said he didn't listen to the advisor around him, Mr. Modi. And Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'm a huge fan of NPR. I think they have the best economics podcast in the world. A man called Anil Bokil claims to be the brain behind demonetization, that he had made a presentation to the Prime Minister, and he's also uploaded his presentation and, how that happens. And there is on record that he was close to the PM and he had the PM's ear. How many people do you still know who still defend demonetization? Because I have a friend who's a hardcore BJP supporter. He's a consultant or banker, whatever Booz Allen does in New York, and a lot of these NRIs in New York are big time bhakts. And he keeps defending demonetization. I'm like, your clients are fucked. Your bank is just going to sink. Do you know anyone who defends demonetization? And is this true from your research? This Anil Bokil is the guy who suggested and PM said, haan, balle balle.
I seriously do not know a single person who defends demonetization now. Even the government has gone silent, and I think there's some internal understanding that they're not supposed to talk about demonetization at all. About Mr. Bokil, I've met him, and he had given several suggestions to the BJP before they were voted to office, and I think later on also he was allowed to make presentations to groups of secretaries. Most of those recommendations did not clear the scrutiny of bureaucrats. In the case of demonetization, in my book, I leave it an open question. I don't know who suggested it, and I do not name him, Mr. Bokil. But let's assume that he did, since he's saying that he did. I think he later on said that it was implemented and designed in a way which was not his recommendation, and it was handled worse than what even his recommendation was. Point number one. And point number two, so if I'm the Prime Minister and I have on the one side Mr. Bokil and everything known about him and his experience of public policy, etc., and on the other hand, I have written advice and oral advice from the Reserve Bank of India, from bureaucrats in the Finance Ministry who've been there, done that, and I decide to ignore them and go along with Mr. Bokil, then the responsibility is completely mine as Prime Minister.
Right.
And let's not forget that Dr. Raghuram Rajan has written in his book that he explained the economics of demonetization, if it were to be implemented, to Mr. Modi personally, and knowing pretty well what it would do to the economy, Mr. Modi decided to go ahead with it. So, he has decided to take this decision, and whoever recommended it, I don't think it's their responsibility. I think it's completely Mr. Modi's responsibility.
I think I will definitely read your book because I'm fascinated by all these little things that happened. But please keep your recommendations on standby. I just have a couple of emails to read. After that, we shall wind up this podcast. This one is from Dheeraj. He gives feedback. 2 lines on last Hafta, the dichotomy of what's taught to British and Indian students. Whereas British students do not know about the atrocities of the British Empire, Indian students are not taught the fact that a major reason why India became independent is because Britain did not have the money to sustain India. We still owe Pakistan money for the partition. Of course, we were not wrong in keeping the money as they attacked us in 1947. And hell, either students do not know that 75% of the British Imperial Army was Indian. Hell, British Indian Army won the Allied powers the war, and we don't even acknowledge it in India. Mahatma Gandhi, the greatest human being to walk the earth despite his flaws. Disclaimer, not a fan. I will give you, I think he was the greatest politician India ever had. I thought you were rational. I'm an atheist and would like to tell you this is exactly how humans are made into gods, by ignoring their flaws. Case in point, by ignoring Modi's flaws. Isn't he now God for many? Yes, I support Modi, but I hate this kind of people. Adulation of him, Jayalalitha, MGR, and even Kejriwal or Hazare. On Anil Ambani endorsing Deora, Arey bhaiya, he's a businessman, and only thing that a businessman has in mind is profit and his business flourishing. Talking about business, are you ignoring the demise of Jet Airways on purpose, or is it not newsworthy enough for Hafta? Had said this earlier, Josie Joseph would be good panelist for Jet and Raffle discussion. I bring the Jet discussion out because Naresh Goyal might have made his money like Malia, but his company is floundering because of draconian aviation laws and taxes. A good story to find the details behind what went wrong with Jet. Dheeraj, I agree with you that everyone has flaws. In fact, I have myself criticized Bapu on many issues, including the one I keep harping on when he told the Bais of Banaras that they were impure and they could not join the freedom struggle. I think he was a chauvinist. I think he treated Bab poorly. I also think he was a product of his time. So no, I don't defend everything he says, but I do think he's the greatest human being to walk the earth, as human beings go, but a human being nonetheless with failings. As far as Josie is concerned, yes, hopefully you will see him on the media rumble this time. we didn't purposely avoid the Jet Airways demise. I just think there were such exciting stuff like Pragya, Shagya were happening. So we just... But since Pooja's here, Pooja, could you just comment on it? You're an expert.
No, Vivek wrote on...
Oh
Jet.
yeah, we wrote a piece on this. In fact, not we, Vivek wrote. We've carried a piece on that. मैं भी हफ्ता ना डाल देता. मैं भी expert हूँ. मैं भी साडी team है जी. But Pooja, he may have liked the Feast
that
of
story
Vultures.
has done pretty well.
No, Josie's book, A Feast of Vultures, is a fantastic book on Jet and Naresh.
We should call him.
Yeah, we will. In fact, we'll call him soon. Karthik, please note. But while he may have made money in a lot of questionable ways, as Josie suggests, and he's facing 1,000 crore suit, what Dheeraj was saying was, all that aside, but Jet died because of bad policy, which is not connected to how crooked Naresh may or may not be. Do you agree?
Jet also succeeded because of crooked policy and the crookedness of its owner. So what I'd say is that given Mr. Goyal's connections and ability to influence decision makers in government, if he really wanted to save his airline, he would have. I suspect it suits him for Jet to go down the way it has.
Oh, I see.
If you read Josie's book, excellent book, which will be my recommendation, it'll become
the
clear.
revenue model is pretty similar everywhere. That you have this company, you cream it, and
then
keep
let it
your
sink.
stash away, and put it in different accounts in different parts of the world. And I'm not saying Naresh Goyal did that, but I'm saying that you see that manner, that modus in all these companies, including Kingfisher and all that, where
My point is, when
I don't see the logic in that, because if you're stealing from your own public company, you're killing your own business. But somehow there seems to be, in business people's minds, a difference of my money and public money is there to
go down,
fritter away or steal.
Sorry, Pooja, you were saying?
I'm just saying it's hard to imagine that a person is resourceful and business-minded as Mr. Goyal, who created such an amazing airline. All said and done, it's an excellent product, an excellent brand. To not have the means and resources and strategy to make his airline a success, and when it faces shocks, pull through it.
Turbulence.
I don't like those words at all. But pull through it is a little hard to believe. He could have really pulled things together.
No, but Pooja, it's possible that somebody who has the smarts to create policies, to lobby, to do all that, may not have the skills to actually run an airline, which requires different skills.
No, I'm not even saying that. What I'm saying is that he'd been running the airline rather well, only it was not in profits. And once the losses were mounting, I have serious doubts that he did not have the resources to bring in new investors, more money, better managers, better decision making to streamline. It's a very high cost airline. It's not a low cost airline.
If you're Naresh,
CEO ke view.
CEO ke view. When you're Naresh, as CEO of a struggling company, no, seriously, if you want to see a really good jet, you have to see Shekhar Gupta of The Print doing a video explainer of it. If it's about 4 minutes, 3 minutes, Mr. Gupta tells us what a good friend he is of Naresh Goyal, and how Naresh Goyal is a very good friend, and how they met many important people together. And then I think he throws in something about jets in the last 30 seconds.
You are so unfair to Shekhar.
Dude, you got to see that.
Totally unfair to Shekhar.
Okay. You guys watch.
Letters, many of them are pretty good.
So, but this is not one of them, I'm afraid, Mr. Kirpal. Because it's more about how good friends he and Prakash Ayer has written a 500-word mail, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just tell you what Prakash says. He's talking about, our last, not last episode, but the episode before that, when we were discussing, when Sudipta was here and we were discussing how people of low castes are treated and the whole Chuda Chamar slur. So Prakash says that he used to hear it once in a while, even his mother used to use it if his cupboard was dirty. But he didn't hear it in the context of a sexual deviant, or just because someone is called a violent, brutish man, it was a sexual deviant leading a thug life, it being referred to for low castes only. So he's wondering, because he grew up in Delhi, if that's the case in many parts of the country. Well, Prakash, it is actually, because certain characteristics were only assigned to that caste. So even using that, even though it wasn't a casteist term itself, had a casteist connotation. I think that's what Sudipta was talking about. And we'll put this mail up, 500 mail, and you can read what Prakash has to say. And one thing Prakash says is that the African American and Dalit same is a lazy equivalence, because a lot of Dalit voices are inspired by many African American like Malcolm X and stuff. He says this sounds a bit like Meb he N-word. When it comes to Dalits, 9 out of 10 stories are about intercaste romance problems, and that's how movies like Fandry and Sairat were too, which is not the case with blacks. Well, actually, I think pop culture has only that angle of casteism, but I think the lived experience is a lot more than that angle. So, Prakash, you're an Iyer, my mother's an Iyer, so I think I'll go with Sudipto's lived experience, because I know the Iyer part of my family still doesn't allow certain people into the kitchen. So yeah, that's that. So let's get the recommendations going. Let's start with Raman and then to our guest.
First of all, our political coverage. We have filed some very good stories, so I would recommend
Gaurav's story today.
Yeah, Gaurav's story on
Supreme Court.
On the Supreme Court.
Nicely written.
Yes. And there is, since Pragya has been talking about Karkare, so there is a documentary by Anand Vardhan called Reason, which is available on YouTube. Since Pragya has been talking about Karkare, she had given a shrap and that's how he died. So
Can
please,
we give her a list of people she should do that
Yeah,
to?
maybe we should. Yeah.
please watch episode 14
So
and
who
15.
cursed her that she ended up in jail?
Please watch episode 14 and 15 to get the real picture, on Karkare.
Madhu, your recommendation?
Yeah, my recommendation is from Long Read's very interesting piece called None of the President's Men, writing about how journalism is different today as compared to when Woodward and Bernstein did the Watergate story.
Okay.
And how editors treat stories differently, how they treat journalists differently. It's quite an eye-opener.
Anand sir.
Okay, 2 recommendations. One about something that we didn't discuss, the terror attacks in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So there is a piece in the Spectator by Barbara Boland about Islamic terror and left's Pret jailed, that is twisted language. So she does a media analysis of American media scene and how American publications and television channels, despite IS claiming it and the involvement of Islamist terror groups, did their best to not call it Islamist terror. So she calls out a lot of media publications in America and television channels which were in a denial mode. So that is one recommendation. And second one is an interesting piece in the Mint. It is also, I said it before piece because I had said it before. Manu Joseph wrote it in Mint, and that how the old elite co-opted Kanhaiya Kumar.
Okay. Puja.
I'd recommend my friend and colleague Josie's book, A Feast of Vultures. It, of course, provides a lot of context for the current Jet Airways news development. But also, I think if you read that along or after or before my book, it tells you how policy mishaps, misguided policy and lack of policy attention and too much focus on politics and other things, friends and etc., what it does in the real world and how it translates on the ground. And I would really recommend his book.
All right. I have 3 recommendations. One is, of course, Puja Mehra's book, The Lost Decade, 2008 to 2018. I'm very, very impressed by her clarity and articulation of ideas and thoughts. I hope it's as clear and simple in the book, so it doesn't go over my head. One podcast I'd recommend is the latest Planet Money, the Indicator podcast, which they have done. It's an economics podcast. They've done it in a bar, and they have a bell. It's called the no jargon bell. So the moment someone uses something like, an active policy intervention, a passive policy intervention to deal with joblessness, someone can ring the bell, and people are in any case a little high in the bar. So any of the economists who gets too jargon heavy, they have to explain what they're saying. So it's a training to simplify when you explain business. And I think television journalists in India think that the more complicated we sound, the cooler we are. But as Rumi had said, जो जानत वो बोलत ना पाई, जो पालत ना चाही, या ऐसे कुछ था.
अवधि है.
हाँ?
ये अवधि है.
अवधि है जो भी.
तो रूमी अवधि कैसे कब बोला?
मैं तो ऐसे ही बोल रहा हूँ ना, मैं तो इंटरनेट में. कोट भी मैंने. Basically, it what translates to who understands it best can explain it simplest. So that podcast, this book, and the third story I want to recommend is this morning. Usually I read in the paper, I go into depression even before I have finished my tea. But this time I started giggling. So my nephew said, why are you giggling? So I said, because I'm reading the paper. He said, but usually not in a good mood when you read the paper. I said, well, the story is aisi hai. Elephant carries off man relieving self in the open. Purulia, an elephant appeared to take grave objection to a farmer relieving himself in the open, and resident carried the man away wrapped in his trunk. The Pachidam ran almost 50 meters before dropping the panicking man to the ground and disappearing into the forest.
Swachh Bharat. And the elephant ran away shouting, Swachh Bharat.
And also I said, what a great setup line for the punchline I'm about to provide. So when he happened, I said, my God, how scary. Uske to shit nikal gayi hogi. I said, nahi, wo to kar chuka tha. So on that classy note, see Pooja, you see what I mean? That I bring the class to the table.
I'm sure she will want to contribute to that subject.
You want to go down the road in that joke, or I think you just talk about economics? You're good. Okay. So thank you, Pooja, for joining us. Pleasure having you here.
Lovely talking to all of you.
And I hope your book does really well, and we get to demystify economics. I would just like to remind our listeners, News Laundry is hosting the screening of Bhor at the Stein Auditorium in the India Habitat Centre, Delhi on the 19th of May at 6:30 p.m. If you're on the newslaundry.com page or our podcast page on our website, you can click on the link below and register. Preference will be given to subscribers. If you're listening to this on any other platform like Stitcher, Spotify, you'll have to come on our page to register for the film. Otherwise, you can contribute to us by going to newslaundry.com. Help us keep news free and independent through the Sena or through the subscription page. You can also PayPal us the money on prashant@newslaundry.com. I repeat, prashant@newslaundry.com. And till we fix the glitches completely, this Hafta is going to be free. So what you can do is you can tag 10 of your friends on Facebook or Twitter and send a screenshot to contact@newslaundry, and we'll send you a t-shirt. On that note, bye-bye. I'll leave you with this song, which I dedicate to Akshay Kumar and Narendra Modi.
न बोले तुम न मैंने कुछ कहा मगर न जाने ऐसा क्यों लगा कि धूप में खिला है चांद दिन रात हो गई प्यार की बिना कही सुनी ही बात हो गई न बोले तुम न मैंने कुछ कहा मगर न जाने ऐसा क्यों लगा
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.